Chartmetric is a tool that if you are an artist and you want to understand data, it's a very important tool for you to know. It helps you. Well, from what I've heard, I haven't used it, so I'm very excited to learn more about this tool. Is that you can see all your data from all your different platforms. And Dom today is going to tell us all about how to use this tool to help you really take advantage of that information and improve your career, right? So if you're an artist or an indie artist, this is going to really help you. So pay attention, guys. Well, with nothing else, let's give a big applause to Dom from Chartmetric.
Awesome. What's up, everyone? Thanks for having me. I'm Dom. Just curious, how many of you are artists? Show of hands. Okay, about half of you. That's amazing. And how many of you have heard of Chartmetric in the past? Some of you? Okay, amazing. Awesome. So we got some new faces as well. Just to give you some background, Dom Randazzo. I work in the client relations department at Chartmetric. I oversee all our U.S. clients. Chartmetric is the industry's leading data analytics platform. I'm also a songwriter producer. I've worked with Chris Brown, Jason Derulo, Tiesto. So I've been able to see kind of both sides of the industry, both the creative side and the business side, and I see how they often intertwine with each other, especially when it comes to data, which is what we'll be talking about today. So Chartmetric really started as a pet project from our founder, Sung. He comes from Korea, and he invented this app basically to track the success of this up-and-coming band at the time that he was interested in tracking. And they were an underground group at the time. They were called BTS. And now, of course, they've kind of exploded and they've become what they are today. And since then, Chartmetric has, like I said, it's kind of become the industry standard in a certain sense when it comes to tracking artist data. And we started by partnering with major labels. We had all 3 major labels on board within a couple of years, live agencies, publishers, music managers. And now we're at a place where we can serve the artist community directly, which I'm really happy and really passionate about. So artists themselves can take advantage of the data and the insights that only labels in the past would have had the access and the capital to take advantage of. So we're really trying to democratize the music industry in a sense and show you really how much power you have as an independent artist to really 10x your career without having to necessarily bring on a manager or bring on a marketing agent to do that supplemental work for you. So we're going to go through some of the basics of the tool today. And then we're also going to review a marketing tool we have available called OneSheet, which is great for independent artists as well. That'll take around 30 minutes, and then I'll leave some time at the end for questions too. Definitely don't be shy if you have any questions or any feedback from us. So that being said, I'll go ahead and show you the tool here. I think we just need to change the screen over. So basically, the way Chartmetric works is it's broken down into 2 different types of tools. So there are research tools that allow you to do market level research, whether that's at the artist level or the track level or even the playlist level. And then outside of those research tools, we have individual profiles where you could really do a deep dive on a single artist or a single track. So the first thing that you see when you sign on to Chartmetric is something called your Chartmetric dashboard, which looks like this. And basically, it contains any profile you decide to subscribe to. The advantage of subscribing to a profile on Chartmetric is you get daily updates to their data every 24 hours. And also you get email reports detailing any notable changes. So if you're an artist, you want to follow yourself on Chartmetric, that'll allow your data to update every single day. You can see some of the metrics that we track here if you scroll along the x-axis. We have partnerships with Spotify, TikTok, Instagram, YouTube. So we get direct data from those platforms. And that's one other main advantage of using Chartmetric is we're not doing any type of scraping or anything like that. You could really get access to the data at the source here. So outside of the Chartmetric dashboard, I'll take you first to one of our most popular research tools, and that would be our artist list here. So this is a table that contains every single artist in our database. Currently, we have 11.8 million artists. When I started at Chartmetric, we had about 9 million. So it just goes to show how many new artists are being created on a yearly basis. And by default, these artists are ranked in terms of their popularity. So we look at the past 30 days worth of data, and we benchmark artists alongside each other. So right now, according to the data, we have Bruno Mars as the #1 artist in the world, which makes a lot of sense if you kind of understand the year he's been having. We have Bad Bunny and Drake rounding out the top 3. The first time since I've worked at Chartmetric that we haven't seen Taylor Swift in the top 3. I'm sure she's not too happy about that, but she's down at number 4. I wouldn't recommend scrolling to the bottom of this list because it's 12 million lines long. It'll take you a while to get to the bottom. But where a tool like this really starts to become powerful is when you start applying these filters here. So A&Rs wake up in the morning, they make their cup of coffee, and then they check their artist list on Chartmetric using these tools here. So just as a quick example, let's say you're doing some investigative research for artists, and you want to filter by, say, Latin hip-hop artists who are based in the US, who are, let's go with mid-level, meaning they haven't exactly broken into the mainstream yet, but they have a substantial following. And then let's get even more granular and say you only want to look at artists who have been releasing music for the past 3.5 years. So these are relatively new Latin hip-hop artists based in the US who have been releasing music for the past 3 years, who have a substantial following because they're mid-level in terms of their career stage and not developing. And we could break that down further later on. But just with 4 clicks, I went from a database of 12 million artists to 5 who fit my hyper-specific criteria. So this is what labels and publishers are doing on a daily basis to try to attract new talent. And it doesn't take away from your taste as an A&R or a music manager or an artist yourself. It just allows you to refine the results to get at artists who are really important to you according to the variables, right? So research that would have taken hours and hours and even days at a time now just takes a few clicks in a few seconds with a tool like Chartmetric. So this type of research-based learning is, like I said, something that publishers and labels do on a daily basis. So if you're an artist, you want to make sure your metrics kind of stack up to the competition so that you have that visibility. If you're looking to sign a deal, whether it's a publishing deal, a record deal, a brand partnership, anything of that nature, you want to make sure that you kind of live up to the competition in that sense, because this is what the music industry is powered by these days. So that basically is how our research tools work on the platform. Right now, we're looking at the artist list here, but the same exact logic applies to, say, our tracks list. So if you were looking at track level data, and you could see here we have over 134 million tracks in our database, but let's just say you wanted to look for, say, the top rock tracks that have been released in the past week. Very quickly, you get from over 100 million results to just over 300 that fit hyper-specific criteria. So if you're making rock music and you want to see what's really trending within that genre, or what's doing well, what's getting on Spotify playlists, what's getting radio play, you could use this research tool here to kind of figure out what's doing best within my niche and how can I kind of dial in my approach to make sense according to what's working within the market. So that's kind of how our research tools work. If you find yourself going back to the same set of filters over and over again, I would recommend you save these filters as a preset, which would appear here in the top left corner of your screen. And that would give you convenient access to those filters, but also a main benefit of Chartmetric is you get email notifications anytime a new artist or a new track meets that criteria. So you can kind of set it and forget it, and then you get notified in your inbox whenever a new artist or a new track matches those variables that are important to you. So outside of our research tools, the other half of Chartmetric with it, which I think you would really find interesting, is individual profiles. So we could use any artist here as a case study. We could use Peso Pluma. And this is kind of what an artist profile looks like. So a few things that you'll notice right off the bat. You have the artist data sources here in the top left corner of your screen. Most of the time, we could link these by default. But if you're an up-and-coming artist and you search for yourself on Chartmetric, we may have missed a few platforms. So it's important to note, to make the most of Chartmetric, you have to make sure that your links are properly connected. So if you're an artist and you sign on to Chartmetric, you find your profile, but let's say your Instagram link is missing, you could just click the pencil icon here, and then it'll take you to a page that allows you to submit updates. Once you submit these updates and click save at the bottom, it will be reviewed by our team, and then data will be ingested from that point forward. So I just wanted to mention that in a sense to say that this is how you take the most advantage of Chartmetric if you're an artist yourself. But back to an artist profile, it's separated into these various sections along the left sidebar here. But starting off with the overview tab, there's a lot of things that you can get, right? So you could see the artist's genre tags, mood tags, some information about them and their career. And you also see this number here, which is the artist's Chartmetric rank. So this is how we rank artists, like I showed you before on the artist list. Right now, Peso Pluma is number 96 out of about 12 million. So I'd say that's a pretty good rank. A few other things you'll notice here, these speedometers, which detail the artist's career stage. We have 5 different career stages: developing, mid-level, mainstream, superstar, and legendary. And this is broken down according to our ranking system that I mentioned earlier. The one caveat is legendary artists have to be around for at least 3 decades. So the reason why Peso Pluma is a superstar and not legendary is simply because he hasn't been around long enough. If you were to go to Whitney Houston's profile or Queen's profile, of course, they would be marked as legendary. Below these speedometers here, one other cool thing you'll notice is the top metric movement calculator. This is really important for artists to see where you're growing naturally and where you're kind of getting the most conversion in terms of your fans versus areas which maybe aren't working so well for you, right? And you could toggle between changes within the past week, the past month, or even the past 2 months to kind of look for patterns in the data. That's something I always emphasize to folks is you don't want to look for just one anomaly at one particular point in time. You want to look for patterns over time, which tells you a more complete story when it comes to how your audience interacts with your music. So in the case of this artist, I'm seeing a lot of consistent support on Deezer and YouTube, which are sometimes overlooked when it comes to streaming platforms, right? Everybody focuses on Spotify and Apple Music, but you might not know you have a really engaged fan base on a more niche platform such as Deezer. So this could very easily tell you those insights and inform your marketing efforts, right? Let's say you only have a limited marketing budget. You want to put that towards platforms and towards areas which are already working for you organically. This would give you that level of insight very easily. And along those lines, if you scroll down here, we have some charts here. So this will show you where you rank amongst all artists on Chartmetric, and also where you rank in terms of your home country and your top genres as well. And you could click into any of these charts, which will show you kind of where you stand amongst the competition. So you could see who's perhaps just a few steps ahead of you or a few steps behind you according to the data. And this is great for, like I said, measuring the competition, but also if you want an opening act on your tour, if you're looking to have a collaboration with someone who could propel you a few steps forward within your genre or within your target market, this is a great way to see kind of artists who are similar to you and have a similar reach to you. So definitely pay attention to that as well. And then lastly, I won't show you every single section on the overview tab, but one other section I'd like to point out as well is the fan base compare table. So if you hover over the x-axis of this table, it will show you the top platforms in which I'm getting the most followers on a per day or per week basis. And right now, in the case of Peso Pluma, I'm noticing something very interesting. He's getting a huge influx of Bands in Town followers, actually more followers than, or more percentage change in followers than platforms such as TikTok and YouTube, which are much larger, have many more users. So what does this tell me? If I were this artist booking agent, I would say there's a huge demand to want to see you live, right? Because why does someone sign up for Bands in Town? It's a live event application. You only really sign up for it if you're interested in live music. And then secondly, why do you follow an artist on Bands in Town? Only if you're interested in seeing them perform live in your home city. So this is a huge indicator that this artist has a demand when it comes to live shows. So once again, if you were shopping yourself around to a booking agent or you had an agent on board, and you wanted to tell them to kind of kick it into high gear, these types of metrics give you that evidence to be able to make rain and really do well when it comes to the live performance space. So that's one example of many insights that you might be able to get when it comes to utilizing a tool like Chartmetric. And right now, obviously, we're looking at a very big artist who's mainstream artist. But even if you're an up-and-coming artist, what I always like to say is, whether you have 1,000 followers or 10 million followers, the data always tells you a story, right? You could still use Chartmetric if you're just up-and-coming, because that's actually more informative in a sense, because it'll allow you to get from point A to point B much faster if you have the data to kind of back it up. So a few other sections I just want to highlight very quickly when it comes to an artist profile. We have the Stats and Trends tab here. So this kind of gives you a bird's eye view in terms of your engagement metrics across platforms. So we like to separate engagement metrics from follower metrics here because we value engagement metrics much higher, right? As I'm sure you know, it's kind of easy to fabricate followers, and it doesn't necessarily mean just because you have a lot of followers that you have a lot of fans. That's why we look at engagement metrics such as monthly listeners, likes on TikTok, Wikipedia searches, things like that. So here is where you'll be able to see where am I growing most on a per platform basis and on a per metric basis. So here you could see growth in terms of Spotify monthly listeners compared to YouTube channel views, compared to TikTok likes and even Wikipedia searches, right? We've seen Wikipedia searches as a huge driver when it comes to new fan acquisition. Why does someone search for you on Wikipedia? Because they just heard about you, they remembered your name, and they want to learn more about you. So we like to include that as well. You'll notice these little icons along the trend lines here. These indicate career milestones. So whether it's a music release, a TV show performance, a concert appearance, you can kind of do a bit of a cause and effect analysis to see, okay, well, I released a bunch of music in October of last year. How did I get an increase in terms of my audience growth as a result of that EP release or as a result of that pop-up or that tour? You could very easily measure that growth here. And whether you're working independently as an artist or you're working alongside a label or a promoter, you need to use these analytics to determine your next step forward. So maybe that means leaning more so into Pandora or doing more live shows or, increasing your presence on YouTube Shorts. Very easy for you to get access to those insights here. And what I always tell people, especially who are just starting out, is that you need to focus on areas that are working. It's really rare to find a moment where you capture an audience on a particular platform. So if you're really hot on YouTube Shorts, but you're not doing so well on Instagram Reels, that's okay. Focus on YouTube Shorts, kind of pour gasoline on the flame, because then you'll naturally kind of see that cross-pollination onto other platforms after you have a captured audience. But you don't want to try to be everywhere all at once and kind of, because everybody has limited time, everybody has limited resources. So if you find a moment that works for you on a per platform basis, focus on that and you'll see the results elsewhere in due time. So that's one thing that you could use the stats and trends page to determine. Now, up to this point, we've looked at engagement metrics, we've looked at follower metrics, we've looked at research tools, but we haven't really gotten to know who the artist's audience is. So that's where you would go to the artist's audience tab, right? So here's where you would see an audience demographic breakdown, right? So you could see age and demographic information, top cities and top countries, things of that nature. Let me just load this up quickly. There we go. So we get audience analytics from 4 platforms: Spotify, Instagram, YouTube, and TikTok. And here's where you'll be able to see age and gender breakdowns. It looks like this artist's audience skews slightly male between the 18 to 24 age range. We also have some ethnicity and language choice information here. For example, if your audience is bilingual, that would affect how you market yourself and how you communicate to your audience. And then below that, we have top cities and top countries. Once again, very good from a live performance standpoint. If you're looking for the next city to book a show, or if you're looking to book a tour and you're deciding between North America and Europe, right? This will tell you, where am I going to get the biggest return on my investment? Where am I actually going to sell tickets, right? So here you could toggle between top cities and countries, and then also look at those on a per platform basis too. Another example of where you would want to look for patterns in the data, right? Just because Mexico City is your number one city on Spotify doesn't necessarily mean you'll sell tickets there. But if Mexico City is in your top 3 cities across several platforms over a long enough period of time, that is a strong enough data set to work with to tell you, okay, if I invest in doing a tour or a festival in that city or that location, I would get return on my investment because I have an audience within that location. So booking agents use this all the time. We partner with Live Nation, all the big agencies, they use this every single day. So it's important if you're an artist and you're trying to level up your live game to know where your target market is in order to kind of supercharge your live event career. So that's how the audience tab is utilized. A few other sections here I'd like to take note of. We also have a brands tab. This used to live under the audience tab, but it became so popular that we kind of made it its own section. And this would show you the top brands in which my audience has an affinity towards, right? So this is great for tour sponsorships, social posts, collaborative posts, things of that nature. Obviously, brand partnerships is a huge way that new artists create revenue for themselves. So I just wanted to make you aware of that as well. Let's see if we can get it to load here. All right, cool. Well, that's loading. I'll go ahead and move on to OneSheet. But just to wrap up on the Chartmetric side, basically that's how the tool is broken down, right? You have artist profiles, you have track profiles, you have playlist profiles, and then outside of that, you have research tools that let you do market level research so you can kind of size up the competition in that way. So the second thing I wanted to show you today is a really cool new tool that we built specifically for independent artists, and that's called OneSheet. It's on onesheet.club, very easy to access. And basically what this does is it automatically generates a press kit for an artist with the click of a button, all backed by Chartmetric data. So instead of hiring a graphic designer or a web designer to build something for you, and then when every time something cool happens in your career, you got to hire that designer again to update the sheet. We want to take all that hard work out of the equation and build it automatically for you. So the way that it works is you sign up for a certain number of sheets. We charge just $2 per sheet per month. So if you wanted 10 sheets, it's $20 a month, for example. And then you can click create, type in an artist's name, and then once the search results populate, you click on the artist and click create, and then it generates a sheet for you within seconds automatically. So for Dochi, this is what a OneSheet looks like by default. So without touching anything, without doing any customization, this is what's available to you. And it's a publicly accessible link available to anyone. So you just copy and paste this link, share it in an email, put it on your website, and it's available to anyone, right? And just to show you some highlights in terms of what we have to offer, you'll notice right off the bat, it's color branded according to the artist's brand identity. So right now she has this kind of alligator green thing happening. So it's designed accordingly. You could see some high-level stats here, Spotify followers and listeners, expandable bio. Everything on OneSheet is fully interactable, so you can click into any section and it'll work for you. You have a spotlight release section, which defaults to their most recent release. You have an audio player, which shows you top songs that you can click and listen to without having to open up a bunch of separate tabs. And then you have some data here, which would be informative if you're trying to promote yourself to a label or to an audience, right? So you can see audience footprints, top cities and countries, a YouTube video carousel, TikTok, Instagram carousel. Once again, fully interactable, press section, featured Spotify playlists, and photo gallery as well. And what's cool about OneSheet is even though we try to make it all pretty and look cool by default, it's fully customizable, right? So if you click into the sidebar here, you can add or remove sections. You could drag and reorder sections, right? You can customize the colors if you wanted to. You could add a contact section at the bottom, which includes your email or your manager's email. So it's all fully customizable in a sense. It's almost like a Canva or a Google slide presentation, right? But the great thing about OneSheet is it updates every single day. So it goes back to the idea of you not having to update this on your own. So if you make a OneSheet today and then you go viral on TikTok 6 weeks from now, that will automatically be shown here and you don't have to touch or you don't have to do anything. So once again, really powerful from a pitching standpoint. A lot of times people are using OneSheet to pitch their music to Spotify for artists or to labels or to radio stations. So it's a really convenient way for you to almost have like a live website where you can kind of set it and forget it and not have to worry about having a press kit that's up to date to promote yourself. So that's kind of the idea behind OneSheet. Let me circle back here. The brands tab loaded on Chartmetric. So here's where you'll be able to see top brands associated with the artist's audience. So you could reach out to Chevy or you could reach out to Lamborghini and say, hey, I'm doing Coachella next week. Let's get a tour sponsorship popping or whatever. So that's another very convenient thing for you to use on the Chartmetric side. One other thing I'll show you very quickly is, because I know there's a lot of independent artists in the audience, and I know that Spotify playlists, especially landing on editorial playlists, is something that's very important to help you break on Spotify, and it's very competitive these days. So I wanted to show you, lastly, a data-driven tool that allows you to get more support when it comes to Spotify playlists. So let's just say you're a hip-hop artist, right, and it's your dream to land on Rap Caviar, which is one of the biggest Spotify playlists in the world. It has over 16 million followers, and it's very competitive, right? They get tens of thousands of song submissions per day. And unless you're in touch with the label or unless you have some kind of inside connection, it'll be very hard for you to break through on that playlist. So we actually have a tool called Playlist Journeys, which allows you to see other playlists, which often act as feeders or predictors into the larger playlist that you're focused on. So let's see if I can get this to load here. Might have to switch to my hotspot. Let's see. Yeah, let me switch to my hotspot real quick. Cool. Well, while we get that to load, maybe I'll open the floor up. Let's see, it's loading. Okay, great. So this is what a playlist profile looks like on Chartmetric. And it gives you all types of information about the playlist, how many followers they have, what types of genres they support, things like that. But if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you get to a tool that's quite honestly underutilized at Chartmetric. It's called Playlist Journeys. And this shows you other playlists, which often act as feeders or predictors into the larger playlist you're focused on. So what I always tell people is filter by independent curators here. And this will show you independently curated playlists made by real people who you could reach out to on Instagram or on SoundCloud. And they have such a high level of predictability in terms of the playlists that you actually want to end up on. So if you land yourself on just a few of these playlists, it exponentially increases your chances of getting on Rap Caviar. And this is a tool that a lot of independent artists are using to kind of break through the noise when it comes to Spotify playlists. So I just wanted to showcase that as well in case it's useful. But yeah, that pretty much wraps up my Chartmetric in OneSheet presentation. Thank you all for listening. And please, if anyone has any questions, don't be afraid to ask. Thank you. Also, I have this fancy QR code here if any of you want to scan it and reach out to me. Sometimes it doesn't work, so if it doesn't work, there's my email at the bottom, dom@chartmetric.com. But definitely don't be shy about reaching out. Anyone who reaches out, I'd be happy to give a free trial for OneSheet and for Chartmetric. So yeah, definitely stay in touch and don't be shy. Thank you. Any questions or any feedback? I know we have a couple of minutes. Yeah, 1 minute? Okay. We got time? Okay, great. Yeah, any questions or feedback?
So, this is from the streaming, and it says you mentioned that this platform allows you to discover a lot of insights about consumers. So, what's the most surprising insight you and your team have discovered through Chartmetric?
Yeah, I would just say the diversity in terms of platforms people use. Everybody focuses on Spotify. Spotify's great. But there are other platforms with which different subcultures and different genres of music tend to work better within. So, a lot of times independent artists kind of sleep on Pandora, for example, or sleep on SoundCloud. These are areas where you could very easily find a captured audience in a much more controlled environment that would allow you to kind of develop an intimate relationship with your fan base. So I'd say the one surprising insight would be just the diversity in terms of platforms people use and how different genres and different cultures gravitate towards one platform over the other. And it's great that Chartmetric has access to all of them so you can compare between metrics and between platforms. Question? Yeah.
Yeah. And a great presentation, by the way. And you said both of these are available to all different types of artists. You just got to sign up for them.
Yeah, exactly. So if you email me, I'll link you up with a 30-day free trial. On the Chartmetric side, we have 3 plans. There's an artist plan for $10 a month, which gives you all the access for yourself as an artist. There's a manager plan, which gives you access to 10 artists, which I think is $60 a month if you're a manager and you represent several folks. And then there's a premium plan, which mostly our labels and our publishers use, which gives you access to every single data point and every artist. So it's up to you which plan makes the most sense. But we could have that discussion and see what might benefit you most. So thank you. Awesome. Well, once again, thanks everybody for listening. I'll be back in the art gallery to meet you. And enjoy the rest of your time here today. And thanks to the UNSiN team.